This is the third video in the Get a Grips Cube series looking at a house. Little drawing, you see this now being deconstructed, running backwards as our end target. And we've got 3 stages to get through here. We're going to look at the construction of the basic perspective cube, which we've covered in an earlier video. We'll see that at high speed. Then the building up of the basic house idea. Then adding the third version is to add this freehand with a little bit more detail, a little bit more depth with things protruding in and out of the object. So what you see at the moment is the end result, if you like, being deconstructed back down to the original cube. Then we're going to look at a quick reminder of the cube 1, which was looking at the construction of a 2-point perspective cube using rulers, straight edges at the moment, just to reinforce some of the technique. But again, this is basically a freehand technique. So what we have here is the target in white, and we're looking to build up using a horizon, 2 vanishing points, lines heading towards the vanishing points, this basic cube idea. Again, you can look in more detail at the original video. So the house itself starts exactly the same, except we go a way of dividing up the edges of the house. This idea of doing 2 diagonal lines to find centre and building up the sloping angles of the roof. And then adding detail, like so the door height being below the height of the gutter, the edge of the roof, for example, and the windows having the same top edge as the door. So we've got the rendered version appearing here. Now the purpose of this particular design is to use a layout pad to show how we can use an underlay, in this case of this particular house, which doesn't have a lot of architectural detail in it. The roof stops right on the edge of the building. We're going to add a little bit more detail to a sketch like this. And I say sketch in this case because we're going to do this freehand. Looking to build up, this is done a little bit faster than the real time. We've speeded the video up, so we'll see the construction of the basic house form. You saw being constructed a couple of earlier instances earlier on. So we're looking to get the roof, the windows and the doors projected from underneath. But as I said before, these are flush to the cube. There's nothing extending really in or out. So our first challenge in this particular drawing is to take the existing information and to project more detail. For example, this bottom edge for the roof, the ridge and the gutter, the ends of the roof are going to extend further out of, that's further towards the right, left and a little bit at the top. By projecting these out, we have an overhanging roof. So we're going over the idea. Now we're going to try and put in the basic construction of vertical lines and lines to the vanishing points of a chimney, a little chimney stack at the far end of the roof. And where it cuts into the sloping roof, we just mirror that slope on the leading edge underside of the chimney itself. Doorway itself, the windows, we can build up from the sketch underneath. Layout pads, a fantastic little bit of kit. It can cost you a few pennies, but you can get a lot of use out of them, and it's like a tracing paper, but a little bit more robust. So the overhang now protruding to the left and right and behind the object. The chimney stack itself moves into a little bit tidying up, going towards the vanishing points. The vanishing points are in the same position as the original 2 drawings. It's just we're not projecting all the way to them now, but we need these as reference points. Now change your grip back to the outlining grip, and we're starting to firm in the visible outside edges. Now again, visible outside edges. We don't really want to do enough little render work on this. I'm not too sure how that back edge is going to go, whether it goes behind the chimney or the roof itself will cut back so the chimney is left proud. So we can see the outline starting to build up. Now the shadow lines, the edges of the roof itself, as it overhangs, it protrudes further to the left, right and in front. So the front edge of the building itself will be offset to that. The shadow lines for the windows and doors, so I keep hitting the camera with being mounted quite so close to the drawing. And a little bit more detail, maybe a little bit of a window frame inside the recess for the windows. These lines either being vertical or going towards the vanishing point. The only lines that break that rule really are the sloping edges for the roof. Everything else obeys the basic rules for 2-point perspective cuboids, where lines either project vertically or to one of the 2 vanishing points, either over to the right hand side or to the left hand side. So we built up the basic sort of form of the building now. We'll look at maybe putting a little bit more detail, maybe some brickwork or stonework at the corner. and a little bit of rendering work at the side. So first of all, just taking that front edge of the building, halving it again, and taking lines towards the vanishing points. This would give us lines, say, for timber logs if it was a wooden house, or bricks if it was a brick house, or in this case fairly chunky blocks, stone blocks, for this little cottage type idea. The offset on the corners should be one long block going to the right, one block going to the left, and staggering back and forward. The windows should have a lintel, a longer piece of stone or concrete that spans across the gap. And these are sort of details, once you start looking at buildings, you'll see in everyday, certainly in older property where these features are exposed, and they still exist in modern property, but a lot tend to be rendered covered with a harling or a covering on the outside. So we have this stepping idea of the stonework in the corner, the lintel starting to span across the windows, and we can project the same sizes down the back edge. So although we've done the leading edge, the edge nearest to the viewer, this same information will project all the way along to the right hand corner and again the left hand corner. Just keeping it regular with long, short, alternate stonework on one side and the other. The roof could easily be tiled, but we're just going to leave that as a rendering at the moment. And now firming in, change of pen in this case, because I'm working in pen for the outline. Having to move around the camera rather than turning the page and moving the wrist work. Maybe put a little bit of a cylinder in the top. We haven't really talked about cylinders, but we're just going to pop a little cylinder as a chimney pot. Well, possibly would have been two, but certainly one on top there. Shadow line for this roof now as it protrudes out from the building, and then the shadow lines again for the doors and windows. Remember, these are reinforcing edges that would be unseen, but to give them greater definition, the shadow line. So we've got the basic form is sitting there, looking to do a little bit work with the shadow, which we also have coming through from the previous drawing. So this is still again using the layout pad as an overlay. Using a marker pen here, we're going to do this as an ink type drawing, so not a great deal of subtle colour work at the moment. This is a black edge, definitely showing a hard shadow cast. Again, that's projected from the drawing underneath. A little bit tidying up around the edges. And once we get the pencil sorted out, we're then going to look at, as always, the light source being from the top left hand corner. Let's move this sheet back over a bit, slightly better view, sorry about it being off centre earlier on. Again, using the side of the tip of the pencil, so this is the render grip now. This is putting in the more subtle use of colour, of tone, shade and shadow. So the right hand surfaces, that's all surfaces consistently point right. The ceiling, the roof, not the ceiling, is slightly different tone because it's angled up, but the side of the chimney pot will be similar to the right hand surface, and the overhang on the roof itself, as well as any recesses for windows on that left hand side. Now, as we build this up, we start off reasonably light, but the thing about tone is we can always get darker. You can use a rubber to lighten things off, but we're going to try and concentrate on building tone here. Shadow cast from the overhang onto the gable end or the left hand end. The shadows cast from the windows, the side of the windows, recess onto the window itself. So the overhang, and then the sides of the door itself will be a darker material. So let's just run that a little bit darker all the way down both directions. So just taking the right hand side has been darker. It's like shadow cast from the chimney, and it's because it's sloping, it'll be cast longer down that surface. A little bit rendering, a little bit tonal work on the cylinder, and then just increasing the intensity where necessary, where there's overhangs, because we've added more tone on top and made it a little bit darkened down. A little bit of shadow underneath the overhanging roof on the right hand side of the building, and then picking out some little bits of detail for the recessed or the cut out stonework. A little bit of grass, shadow at the side, just a little bit detailing on the door, and I think we're about done. So from beginning to end, we put smoke, somebody's put the fire on. Enjoy your sketching.